Hello to you all. Bonjour, buenos dias. I'm very happy to be here and to host this webinar alongside my colleague of the local international government coalition to end plastic pollution. It's a new edition of the information webinar on our coalition. My name is Rachel Lévesque. I work at the Ministry of International Relations and la Francophonie for the government of Quebec in Canada. I'm not a webinar specialist, so bear with me. We'll try to make it fun and dynamics. And I'm also here with a few colleagues from the coalition. So I see Paul from South Africa, Ignacy from Catalonia, Maria as well. So we have a few people from ICLEI, from Catalonia. This is the second information webinar that we're doing today. We had one this morning with also a colleague from UCLG. So we try to adapt according to the different time zone. So this is the third information webinar of the local and international government coalition to end plastic pollution. But we're really happy to have it today, although it's the middle of the summer. It's a very busy time for the negotiation on plastic pollution, and it's a very strategic moment during the ongoing negotiation to have a future instrument on plastic pollution. We finished a few weeks ago the fourth meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, INC4, in Canada. And then we're going to enter soon some intersessional open-ended expert groups meeting on different topics. We'll present them a little bit later during our presentation. They will take place in August, Bangkok. And we're already very focused on the roadmap to Busan, where we will have the fifth meeting of the negotiation committee next November. The local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution is convened by a group of core partners, the Government of Catalonia, the Government of Quebec, ICLEI, and UCLG. And we have the very precious support of C40, Global City Hub, Regions 4, WWF, UN Habitat, and UNEP. We'll get into it, but we launched the coalition last April and we have a lot of signatories already. So we're really happy to see the coalition growing. So the goal of this webinar is really to connect with our existing partner, current signatories, but also to further engage with the potentially interested local and international government around the world that care about the issue of plastic pollution and want to play a role in the current negotiation. And we'll also present a recap of the INC4 meeting for those who weren't able to attend. And then our coalition roadmap leading to the INC5 meeting in November. So I'll start with a PowerPoint presentation that will present the different points I've mentioned. And then we'll give some time for a period of discussion, question. We want to have an interactive exchange. Do not hesitate. This is the moment to ask all of the questions, have all of the comment on the issue and on the coalition. We have a few colleagues from the coalition there that can already answer some questions. If you have very urgent question, you can put them in the chat. If not, we'll allow some time at the end of the webinar. So let me share my screen so we can start. So is it working? It's always the big test. Yeah, I see nothing.
Yes, looks fine.
Thank you so much. Okay. Good. So as mentioned, we're already at the second point of our webinar. You've been welcomed. So we're going to have an overview of the INC process and more specifically the point of interest for you, for local and international government. We'll briefly present the local and international government coalition for those who don't know it yet. And then our really exciting roadmap to Busan. And as I was saying, we're going to save some time for an interactive discussion. So as many of you knows, is it better if I do? Okay, good. as many of you knows, we have a new international instrument on plastic pollution on the way. It has started at the UNEA 5 meeting in 2022. There was a historic decision establishing an intergovernmental negotiating committee, so the INC. It was adopted by all of the countries to develop a global legally binding instrument on plastic pollution that will include the marine environment. This was welcomed and very positively received by the international community, since we're really facing a plastic pollution crisis. As a reminder, and most of you know these numbers, but they're worth repeating, only 9% of the world's plastic is currently recycled. And on the other hand, plastic pollution production is expected to triple by 2060. So we do have an issue on our hand, and thus the importance to have international guidance on this issue. So according to UNEP, this will be a very important multilateral environmental agreement following the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and more recently the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. This future instrument will be based on a comprehensive approach that aims to address the full life cycle of plastic. So this is important. It wants to include the production, the design, the disposal, waste management, circular economy, and so on. And also very interesting, it addresses both the impact of plastic on our environment, but also human health. So the issue that we've see more and more facing the link between the microplastic and human health, but also the impact that it has on the environment. And the INC process, it's not a treaty yet. So the negotiation, how it works, it has members that are countries and observers. And observers are a very large group that includes both civil society, but also private sector, academia, representative of different groups such as the waste speaker, youth, local and national government. So our constituencies are included in the group of observers. And we'll get into why the coalition is important in that regard. Just a quick overview, the INC process is intended as being a very fast-paced process. There's a strong will for an ambitious negotiation calendar. It was launched in 2022, and the goal is to adopt a treaty in 2025, and we're in July 2024. So you can see here where it starts and the different INC meeting that started in Uruguay. Then we had one in Paris, one in Nairobi, and very recently the INC 4 in Ottawa. And during each of these intergovernmental negotiation committee, the members and the observer have the objective to draft the legal text of the instrument and also the structure of what will be the INC, the plastic treaty. So at this stage of the presentation, you probably wonder, why do we need local and national government representation, and why do we need a coalition? So as I explained in the beginning of the presentation, we have members and we have observers. Observers is a sea of different representatives. It includes lobbyists, it includes youth, women, and so on. And so it's very difficult for our constituency to have a voice at the table and to influence the legal text of the instrument. However, plastic pollution is an issue where local and national government have a lot to say and are going to be very involved in the process. First of all, we are in the front line of the plastic production crisis. But more importantly, we see its effect on our municipalities, our citizens, etc. But additionally to that, we have the competencies and we have the regulatory power and the responsibility to develop and implement measures when it comes to waste management and plastic production and sustainability. So we have whatever will come out of this international treaty will trickle down over our regulation and our competencies. Then we do have best practices, and we're already very active, and there's leaders amongst ourselves that are already doing a lot of things to counter plastic pollution, and the ink process is an excellent way to have this community of practice and make sure that we're all facing the same pace when it comes to the solution. We can raise awareness. We're really close to the citizen, to the private sector, to the academia, and so on. And we're good when it comes to vertical integration. So having the link between the national government, the subnational government, and the local governments. So in the end, we have the tools, the knowledge, the resource to effectively tackle plastic pollution. And this is why it is important for local and national government to be involved before the treaty adoption, to make sure that when it's adopted, it really reflects our role, the importance, and how we are an important actor when it comes to implementation. I apologize in advance. I just see my screen, so I don't see if there's any question or reaction. So don't hesitate to communicate in the chat if needed. So this is the idea behind the coalition. We were in the Nairobi meeting last November 2023, and we were thinking on how to be really effective and how to be really present and how to weigh in the negotiation. And since we were simply observer amongst other hundreds of observers, the idea was to create a coalition so we could regroup and have a better place in the ink process. So the main goal of the coalition is really to speak with an unified voice, so to regroup all of the local and national governments that wish to take part of the process and that are interested in the instrument on plastic pollution, and also call for an ambitious plastic treaty, because we'll present it a bit later, but there's a lot of divergence in what will be the ambition of the treaty. The objective of the coalition is to really recognize local and national government as key actor of the negotiation, and also to include the local and national government importance and their role in the text of the future instrument, to really ensure that an instrument will have an effective implementation. We mentioned it at the beginning. The main partner are ICLEI, Québec, Catalonia, and UCLG, and we have support from many different partners. We had the official launch of the coalition on April 22nd, 2024. It was the Earth Day, and it was also the Partnership Day organized by Canada and WWF right before the beginning of the Inc4 meeting. We'll come to that event a bit later. And since we've launched it in April, we have now currently more than 80 signatories, but our goal is to attract an even bigger number and to be sure that we represent a very large voice of local and national government. How to join the coalition? We have all of the different tools and steps needed. First of all, we have an official website, and you have the link there in the QR code that has all of the different elements that you need to know about the coalition. So we have a concept note that reflect on why do we need the coalition and why does it exist. And then we have an official statement that really states our objective, our intention, what we believe is important in the future instrument, all related to the local and the national governments. It doesn't go into technicalities of the obligation of the treaty, but it's more a general statement on why the treaty is important for our constituency and why we need to be part of it. If your government is interested and wish to join the coalition, there's different ways to do so. There's one way that is very simple. We have a direct link on the webpage with an application form, and you can just fill the form and then will confirm that you're an official signatories and you'll be part of the coalition. And you can also request to have a more formal invitation letter that we can send to your authorities. And then you can sign a more formal membership letter. And upon reception, once again, you'll be part of the signatory of the coalition. We are targeting signatories of local and national governments, so regions, province, cities, municipalities, and so on. But there's also an opportunity for the national government to support the coalition, so to endorse as well our goal and objective, because in the end, it will be national government, so members to the INC process that will weigh in and be able to formally finalize the INC process, draft the legal document, and adopt and ratify the instrument. So if you want to scan the QR code, we'll also put all of the link in the chat of the webinar. And this is, as we mentioned, the third webinar we're organizing, but we also have additional information webinar that will be organized before INC 5, because we really do want to keep in touch with the signatories, provide all of the information needed to those that are interested to join, and also keep you updated on the INC process, since it's the United Nations, so information comes at a very slow pace. So we want to make sure that you have all of the information in due time. So I'll then switch about a very interesting part of our webinar, which is the key information about the negotiation process. We wanted to recap the main outcome that we saw at INC 4, and then follow up on what we did as representative of the coalition that were present in Ottawa. So at the INC 4 meeting that happened in April in Canada, there was more than 2,500 participants, which was a very big number. At the very beginning of the process, we had fewer participants. So we see that at every INC meeting, the number of participants is growing, reflecting the importance of the process and how it becoming to grow a momentum. And at the particular INC 4 meeting, there was more observers present than members. So we also do see how it attracts both the private sector, the civil society, NGO, and other representatives. The objective of the INC 4 meeting was to, it has a quite ambitious objective. It was to reduce the draft text that the member produced after INC 3, and then confirm those international session meeting that we discussed that will happen in August and before INC 5. And on those objectives, you have to know that at the INC 3 meeting in Nairobi, sorry, I'm losing my English. The current text of the instrument was went from, I don't remember the number of pages, but at the end it was 70 pages. So it really grew and has a lot of bracket. It was heavily bracketed. And since we want to have legal text ready for INC 5, there was a big pressure on Info to be able to reduce the options present in the text. We were able to do some progress in the different contact group in that regard. So there were three different contact group happening at the same time. But still the discussion were quite lengthy and not equal in the different contact groups. So at the end, we did make significant progress, but at the beginning of July, we received the new version of the draft instrument, and it's still quite heavy as a text. So we see that we're making progress, but at maybe a slower pace than what is expected from the INC process. We also saw confirmation, I should say, at INC 3 on how there's divergence, clear divergence on the different group present during the meeting. First of all, there's a big divergence regarding the scope of the treaty. we see a lot of members pushing for an instrument that will focus more on the area of waste management and circular economy, for example, versus other that will push for really respecting the UNEA resolution and having a plastic that will address the full life cycle and also tackled the issue of reducing the production of plastic. And officializing those different views are two major groups of countries. So there's a high ambition coalition to end plastic pollution that is coordinated by Norway and Rwanda, and have a bit, I think it's around 50 countries that are pushing for an ambitious treaty. And then there's a like-minded group regrouping countries such as Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Cuba, and a few other that are also promoting the sustainability of plastic and how it's important in a lot of aspects of our daily life, and are more oriented towards an instrument on waste management. So we really did see how there's a very strong line between those two groups, thus additional work needed to come to consensus. So we saw that in a more of an official matter during this meeting in Ottawa. However, that being said, the INC4 meeting was a very successful event for the coalition. First of all, because it was its official launch. We're really proud and really happy to have a big high-level event with the Minister of Environment from Québec and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Catalonia that were present on stage with the representative of the Mississippi River Initiative, and a few video message from our partners in California, and from Regions 4, for Sao Paulo, from the city of Montreal, and a few others. And so we had a big launch that were really successful, really well recognized by many different partners, observers, and members that were present. We did also follow very actively the negotiation, and we did an official opening statement. So we were able to take the floor at the opening plenary to also launch the coalition and speak out our objective to the members during the beginning of the INC process. And then we, amongst ourselves, divide to more conquer to be able to follow all of the different contact group, making sure that we were following all of the different negotiation and see how we're addressed the role of local and national government. We had a very successful participation in a lot of different events. There was very few official side events organized in the INC meeting, and we were able to participate in both of them. So we had representatives from Quebec and from Catalonia that presented the coalition. Then we organized a lot of events on local and national government in the plastic action zone, showcasing the leadership of local government alongside British Columbia and California. For example, we did an event with them. We were able to participate in a few other events. And very important as well, we took a lot of our time to really have advocacy. So we took time to reach out to negotiator, to present our technical position, the technical wording we wanted in the instrument. And we had a lot of bilateral meetings with potential signatory, interested partners. We were able to push the coalition and make sure that it was very, very well known. So on that, I think that Ottawa was really a great launch for the coalition. Then that leads us on the roadmap to the coalition to Busan, so the INC5 meeting. It is important to know that before INC5, there will be intersessional work that is planned in August in Bangkok. So the first group is on mean of implementation. So really, how do we make sure that once we have a treaty obligation and targets and so on, how do we make sure that it's ambitiously implemented in terms of resource mobilization, capacity building, and so on. And then there's a second group that will meet around all of the idea of product design, approach to plastic product, and chemical of concern. So those will be, they're not negotiation meetings. So the idea is not to negotiate the text or advance some position, but really being able to have technical and expert discussion to progress on those two themes that were identified as difficult to advance in the negotiation. The coalition won't have a chance to participate in those two meetings, but we will make sure to convey our objective and our position to the negotiator and the main UN regional group ahead of those two events. And then we will have the Inc. 5 that will take place from November 25 to December 1st in Busan, Republic of Korea. And then we have two main priorities leading to Busan. First of all, on coalition engagement. So we want to make sure that we increase as much as we can the coalition members and signatories, so we can really have as we were mentioning earlier, an unified voice represented a lot of different local and national government to be able to have a real way into the negotiation. And then we'll continue to be involved in the negotiation process. We will prepare a new position for local and national government that will be ready to be shared with the negotiator and the secretariat and the main participant for the meetings. We will be ready to share this position with the coalition. And we're also very interested to have cities, municipalities, regions, the national government interesting to also play a leadership role, because ideally, in the end, what we want is to reach out to the national government and include our technical position into their official negotiation position. So in the end, it becomes really powerful, and we're securing as much as we can to be able to include our objective and our role and our contribution into the future instrument. So I'll end by saying that we're still really open on ideas and discussion and reflection. This is a coalition that aims to represent all of your different interests and priorities. So our mission is really to create a unified front from the local and national level government to ensure inclusivity and representation. So to have as much different portrait on your constituencies. We also want to be present at the upcoming key global event leading to Inc. 5. So we'll be aiming to prepare events at the UNGA, the New York Climate Week, and the Summit for the Future in September. We'll also be present at COP16 of the CBD in Cali in the end of October. So we'll push the coalition as much as we can before the Inc. 5. And we want to showcase political leadership and championship. So we really want to hear from you, from your best practice, from your success, from your opinion, to be able to truly reflect them and scale them up into this very important negotiation process. So I think this is the end of our formal presentation. So I'm happy to end sharing my screen and then finally see you again, because I was alone in front of my screen. I hope it was an interesting presentation. Now it's time for me to stop talking and for us to hear from you. Really interested to have a discussion, answer your question. As I was saying, we have members of the coalition here. I see Paul, I see Ignacy. So we're here to answer all of your questions and have a discussion. So I'll end it over to my colleague Paul that will do a splendid job into moderating the next portion of the event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Curry. I'm the Director of the Urban Systems Unit at ICLEI Africa and supporting our global team as part of this coalition. I think Rochelle has done all the heavy lifting and I have the really easy job to say any questions. But really for the next 25 minutes, there's space to reflect. Are there any points of clarification that you would like? If you are unclear about some of the motivation of why the coalition is coming together, very happy to discuss that. And then are there specific issues that you're seeing in your cities that you think would be really interesting to highlight in this process? And excuse me, I'm again, urban systems is my title, so I use cities interchangeably, but we are speaking about local and subnational governments more broadly. So I hand over to anyone here. Please raise your hand or unmute and be welcome to voice a question. And I'll draw on the rest of the team here to reflect and share their insights. Joseph, please.
Hello. Good morning or good afternoon or whatever it is, wherever you are. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Joseph Canals. I'm the Secretary General of MedCities. MedCities is the network of 80, so far, 80 municipalities and metropolitan areas from the whole Mediterranean region. We are a political estimate, but mainly we are a platform of projects and very implementers and very practical. So my colleague from our team, Carolina, was this morning and in this session. I couldn't be with her. We haven't had the opportunity of exchanging. Maybe he raised this question, but I don't know what can be our role as a network. We have 80 members. Can our members be part of the coalition? Can we enhance? I think that so that we as network be also part of the coalition as a network, or just being a means to which is not a few things, but being a means to raise awareness among our mayors in the whole Mediterranean region. This is the main question. What could be a role like to an association like ours in this arena? And by the way, I cannot let the opportunity go of congratulating the government of my country, Catalonia. We are based in Barcelona, and the government of Quebec, and of course ICLEI, which we have been in touch, and we will be more. And I think it's a very, very so expected and waited for a long time initiative to stop the production and the generation of plastic and waste in general. So thank you, muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much as well for joining both sessions. I think the answers are quite easy. Yes, you're most welcome to join us as an organizational partner. We have a few types of partners: ICLEI, Catalonia, Quebec, UCLG are the convening partners. We then have a set of core partners who we invite to bring in their constituents to help us shape the documentation, to help us shape the positions, and then supporting partners who aren't necessarily local or subnational government oriented, but believe in local governance and local voice, who then add their institutional support behind. And then, as Rochelle has mentioned, supporting parties who would offer their voice and say, we believe that this is important. So the easiest way is to shoot us an email, or we have your email here, so we'll also be following up with you, but we can certainly follow that up. And then I do think it is very interesting just as a reflection. We've got a number of local and subnational government networks making up this uh, um, coalition. And the feedback that we get is that parties want to see the tangible name of the governor signing, name of the specific local or subnational government. And so while each of us bring the weight of a broader network, there is a request for that specificity. So that's the motivation why we're asking for signatories directly again for the specific coalition. Yeah. Further comments, clarifications, additions?
I see a question on the chat board. Maybe I can read it to you. I see Tara Kelly ask if the work is meant to continue past the Inc. 5 treaty signing.
Absolutely. So the journey is expecting that a treaty or instrument will emerge, which will establish, similar to the climate biodiversity desertification treaties, a Congress of the Parties, who will then come together on a consistent basis to ensure that whatever was agreed is implemented. Each of those COPs has a different set of institutional relationships with different constituencies. And so for the climate COPs, we have the LGMA, thank you. And then for other UN processes, we have the LAMG, the local and municipal governments. So our presumption is that a similar instrument, and we're advocating for such a thing, will come into play. And so the aim is that this coalition sets the basis for already having a constituency with a perspective that can be taken forward in those further negotiations. So yes, there is an assumption of continuation afterwards, and what we're trying to hold ourselves accountable to is to ensure that when inviting local governments into this, there is a value proposition in terms of information sharing, in terms of trying to profile the work that's going on already. Great question. And the meta aim and the reason why we're trying to, push so hard at the moment is to make sure that whatever the shape of the instrument, it has to include the words local and subnational government, because with specific regard, ideally, to resourcing local and subnational government, because if that's not in, we're going to spend the next 5 years advocating into that group to include it, whereas we could have that as our starting point and then speak more appropriately about, well, how do we empower, how do we work with, how do we partner with local and subnational government? Please, Daniel.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I represent the Bavarian government, so a region of federal state of Germany, as you may know. And just a question of clarification, like what is the focus of the overall initiative? Like not only this initiative here, but of the whole process. Is it limited to fighting plastic pollution in the oceans, or is it rather broad to also concerning about groundwater, soil, whatsoever?
Ignacio, you raised your hand for technical questions. Maybe I can throw this one to you.
Hello, yes. I will try to answer the question. The treaty is very ambitious, and it includes all the life cycle of plastic. It includes the production, the management of the waste, and it includes all the pollution on earth, on soil, on water. So it's very ambitious, and it's really a strong key tool for the next years to fight against the plastic pollution all over the world. So we haven't entered in details because it's very, and now it's a text that it's still with discussion. It's not a final text, but I suppose in next month, and after or before Busan, we can share a text with all the signatories. Daniel, I don't know if I answered your question. Or...
Excellent. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ignacio. To add to that, what's really interesting about the process is that the first draft brought together every party's perspectives. And so it was full of everyone's different wording. And then in this Inc. 4, as Rochelle says, we've tried to chop and synthesize and connect. There's a lot of bracketed text, which is then going to be negotiated. And such a really interesting thing is no one is against ending plastic pollution. Everyone is offering positive energy into this, but then these little subtle shifts and additions come in. And one of them I saw, for example, it's the life cycle approach, 2, and then there's plastic, and then there's a bracketed pollution. And so these little shifts that might reduce the ambition in very tricky ways will come up for negotiation. So what is their agreement on what life cycle approach is? No, and we're seeing, does that extend to the polymer producers, or is it just about once it is a plastic good? And then some wording, the life cycle approach to plastic pollution. But then what is the life cycle of plastic pollution? So those are really interesting scoping questions, which are emerging. So from the general ethos, we feel that quite an ambitious instrument will come, but it is by no means guaranteed. Further comments, reflections? Maud.
Hi, I'm from the City of Montreal. Thank you very much for the presentation, and also for the website you have put online. It is really helpful. I was looking rapidly. Do you have a list of the signatories for the moment, or on the website? Maybe I missed it.
We do have a list. I don't think it's on the website,
Okay.
But that is something that we do plan to have up. I'm not sure, Rochelle or Ignacy, if we can confirm it. I don't think we've put it up yet, but thank you for the prompt. And I think we've passed, I think, 80 signatories. So now that the list is growing something boastable, we will certainly start advertising that.
Yeah, we're reflecting on that. To be honest, it's the first question we're receiving when we reach out and we advocate, to see the list. So since we have the webpage, I think that ideally our next step will be to have public lists available, and so everyone can consult it.
Okay, thank you.
We also added the latest draft of the instrument, which can be very intense when you open it. It's a very big instrument, and you can see a lot of brackets, but it shows you at the stage of negotiation we're at, and we're not surprised, but at this stage of the negotiation, we don't see a clear reflection of local and subnational governments. It's not well embedded in the text now. So this is why we're doubling our efforts to be sure that when we arrive to Busan, we've reached out to enough members, and we believe that a lot of them can support the inclusion of our constituency and militate for having this more participatory international instrument. However, one of the biggest argument we can have is when we reached out to them, to be supported by the very big coalition with a lot of signatories. So we see that as a parallel process. But you can, if you look into the document, you don't see that much reference to cities, to regions. It's really few.
The one reference to local government has been included from Inc. 4, which was under the partners and stakeholders. So that's promising, but it's also still very heavily bracketed. And the main link to subnational governments is quite positive, because it talks about providing technical and financial resources to subnational governments, but it's seated only under the waste management sections. And so it is not really offering opportunity for local or subnational government involvement in whole life cycle engagement, decision-making, planning, and then the many other mandates that connect to local government. further thoughts, clarifications, reflections? Please, Annette.
Well, I don't know enough about the process side. Is there any chance that the coalition would become part of the negotiating party or group, or is that not an option?
So the current formation is that observers can raise their hands to speak in plenary, but they don't get a vote, and our inputs do not get recorded nor considered in the compilation of the text. Many delegations are perfectly able to bring local or subnational parties as part of the delegations, and then that's quite a strategic route in to influence the broader negotiating team. But it depends then on the interest of the national party and how they're designing their delegation, and that often has to do with the existing governance formation. The hope would be that when the negotiating Congress or Conference of the Parties is created, the allowance is made for special constituencies to be acknowledged. So at the moment, when we show up the inks, we are part of just a broad category called observers. So one organization can speak with just as much authority and power as a coalition that represents a constituency. The INC Secretariat has been really supportive for constituencies. So if you are representing groups, they do try to prioritize. So that has been really great, as they really do want to get the voice of observers in. But the process, we are really at the mercy of what parties think is important. So we have to convince them.
Yeah, in the earlier question on whether or not like there would be implementation or like action of the treaty, like it does lead me to the question of that work at a monitoring or measurement stage, unless a federal or national government takes that on, it's going to be the subnational governments that are going to have that information on where pollution is ending up. So I feel like I'm asking these questions because if I'm going to engage on my political representation, I need something kind of direct.
Yeah.
So I think those are the connections I'm trying to make and see where that would best fit. Knowing that, you mentioned that there's maybe already a portion there on some funding, even if it is in brackets or it's kind of acknowledging that, but I don't feel like, the manufacturers of the products are going to be measuring pollution, right? They're not going to have that data. So at some point there's, going to be a role, or, even if it's not funded, I think that's data that municipalities and subnational governments are going to continue to have or experience.
Absolutely. And this is the argument we're putting forward. And I think we're in a better position than the biodiversity or climate COPs, because waste management is traditionally the purview of local or subnational government. So that's definitely an argument that's going forward that makes parties quite receptive to the remark about local and subnational government. What we will be doing is working on amendments or additions to the text, a document that effectively takes the current compilation, current draft, and then remarks where we want to see our wording added. And so we aim to put that together quite soon and to share that with the coalition members. And I think if you can look at that and say, is this useful to me to then engage politically? That would be quite useful for us as well, because we want to be able to give the negotiating teams from each of the parties a packet that basically allows them to feed the words in, because they're concentrating on a whole other set of priorities as well. But just to say from your negotiating point, the main implementation route is for each party to develop a national action plan. So our hope is to try and ensure that there's a form of localization or multi-level engagement in that. But we also have to be very careful not to be too prescriptive, because each party has its own routes.
This might be more of a technical question. When we're speaking about pollution, and then you said there's the subtext of waste management, do we see litter as waste management or as pollution? I think, you know, waste management is where you can plan for things, right? Litter management is where you're cleaning it up. And I feel like that's the same approach you take with pollution. You don't plan for pollution, you have to address pollution, right? So I think there's a strong distinction in that. And maybe that's a point where I think most subnational governments will have issues, you know, with the plastic as litter. So maybe it's worth kind of pulling that angle out so it doesn't get captured under just typical waste management collection at the curb, processing, and all the way down the chain, you know?
And I think that speaks to the broader arguments that are being made. We want a life cycle perspective that puts system design, thinking about financing up front, whose end of life responsibility is it? We're focusing on that because the opponents to that are favoring a business as usual production of plastic because we can treat it with good waste management. And that's the argument that emerges. And so we're trying to challenge that. Angela.
Hi, thank you. I'm living in Germany, and I was wondering, I've seen that there are many local businesses that are coherent with a high ambition coalition, for example, or to end plastic pollution. And as local, then it's more feasible that they pollute less. And I wanted to ask if, I'm thinking, for example, in stores without packages, that unfortunately in Germany, some of them are starting to close because it's not financially feasible for some of them to survive. So I wanted to ask if the coalition might be open or to not only include local governments, but also local businesses with these same goals of ending plastic pollution.
So I think the case studies and the experiences of businesses who are offering an alternative and then not managing to ensure that the business model survives or are in need of a better enabling environment is a really good point to raise. I think for those cases, we would invite business associations or those businesses to join as supporting partners because our core constituency is local subnational government. And so our main voice that we are, have legitimacy through our networks or are building the legitimacy around this specific issue to speak on behalf of our local or subnational governments. And because business is also a very varied entity, I don't think the coalition partners at the moment feel comfortable being able to speak on behalf of that constituency. But nevertheless, being able to demonstrate that one of our main roots with engaging with local government or subnational government is public-private partnership and working in collaboration. That can't be understated. So I think we'd welcome businesses as supporting partners to add their voice if there's ambition, but we wouldn't be in a position to be able to speak on behalf of that constituency.
And if I might add to Paul's answer, because it's a really good suggestion, Angela, I put it in the chat as well, but there's a other coalition and there's a very strong one, business coalition also that is calling for an ambitious plastic treaty and is representing the business that are interested to be part of the negotiation. We're trying to be linked with all of the different coalition. There's also a scientific working group. There's a parliamentary coalition. There's I'm missing a few, but there's a few more. So maybe those local businesses can also be represented by the broader business coalition as well.
Thank you. It's just because I think that a local coalition of everything, but being local, that could be also a good idea, but thank you.
Thanks so much, Angela. See, we've got two minutes left. Very happy to stay on if they're burning questions. But I might maybe offer an opportunity for coalition partners just to offer a sign-off or a reflection. I see, Cindy, you've joined us as well. I don't know if you have a reflection you'd like to add in.
I'm just also happy to answer any questions C40 cities may have in the coalition. And we've had some also from cities that I'll share with you, because I think we're hearing very similar things in questions from cities weighing to sign on to the coalition and trying to make the political argument for that as well. So the more information that we can provide them in terms of the negotiating process, as well as really clearly articulating the role of cities and the importance of the ultimate implementation of the treaty instrument will all be important points cities consider. So happy to facilitate those conversations as well.
Cindy? Maybe Ignacia, a closing reflection, then Rochelle.
No, just to add that it's a very complex treaty that includes a lot of technical things about extended producer responsibility, microplastics, waste management, a lot of things to discuss. And we want I think all the signatories that it will be a strong treaty, because the problem with plastic is a very big problem related with the triple crisis of the planet. So that's all I want to say, Paul. Thank you, everyone, to be here.
Yeah, I think I will also want to end by thank you all for your participation. We really wanted to reconnect with current signatories, but also further share information. I know those are very, as Ignacy said, it's a complex treaty, but it's a complex negotiation process as well. But I think it's worth keeping people informed because it will lead to a new international instrument that will affect all of our constituencies. So we will keep, as mentioned, organizing further information webinar. And in the meantime, do not hesitate to reach out. You have all of our email addresses on the webpage. We're really motivated. We're preparing toward Inc. 5, and we want to keep building this strong community and be present until the end of that process. So thank you so much for being there today, and I hope we see you in the close future.
What a perfect sign-off. Thank you, everyone, for offering the time today, and we'll be in touch. Stay well.
Thank you.